Welcome to Beard HR. This is Dominic. Today I'm going to be reacting to an article I read. It's on the SHRM website. SHRM stands for the Society of Human Resources Managers, for those who aren't familiar. This is a body that puts out articles and provides educational materials that HR people use quite frequently. This article is posted today, July 7th, 2023 by Caroline Hronchik, and it is titled as Financial Stress Soars, HR Leaders Struggle Too. Why would this article be of interest to you? Well, most of us interact with HR people in some form or fashion. Whether you are an HR person, like myself, you are an employee, you are a manager. So this is definitely an article that has a strong ring of truth to me, and I'm just going to go ahead and read excerpts of it and share some thoughts related to that. So it starts off, it's no surprise that employees are financially stressed right now. High inflation, the impact of the pandemic, and turmoil in the technology and financial sectors have left many employees concerned about both their job security and their economic stability. HR executives are on the front lines of responding to these challenges. They're often the ones employees turn to first for support when they're under financial pressure. Many HR teams have responded by offering financial wellness benefits to support employees during tough economic times. But HR leaders are struggling just as much as, if not more than, other employees when it comes to handling their personal finances. All right, so let's pause for a second and talk about that. Because HR people are people. They are human just like everybody else. And while that can be hard to remember at times, when you walk into the HR office asking for advice about something, looking to understand your benefits or how something works, the thing to remember is while we have those answers oftentimes, there is a disconnect that can occur between the answer that we have and what's going on in our own lives. We may know about all these different benefits that are available, but sometimes the conversation with our employees or managers or even the rest of the executive team is the key element that helps us remember, oh yeah, there's a benefit here that we can use. So what this article is pointing out is that just like everybody else, HR people are not necessarily making the best decisions or in the best position right now, because some of these things are not based on our decisions. You know, people have been downsized. People have had unexpected expenses during this financially turbulent time. Perhaps somebody had to do a major home repair or, you know, some other crisis like that where they've had to shell out a bunch of money, and suddenly they find themselves behind on payments and on whatever else is going on financially in their life. So this is not surprising to me at all. As a matter of fact, it's something that, you know, HR people are just like any other people in the working sector, and we have our strengths, we have our weaknesses, and there are definitely people who are in financial difficulty. Now, could you argue that there are other factors? Definitely. But the key thing here is, you know, HR people, just like anybody else, have their times when they're having financial difficulties. And basically what Ms. Hronchik is pointing out is that there's actually data now that shows definitively that this is going on. So her information is based on a 2023 survey by a company called Brightplan, who has put out the 2023 Wellness Barometer survey. I'll put a link to that in the notes below. And they basically surveyed 1,400 knowledge workers. Now, this is a term that refers to positions where your mental capacity is what you're getting paid for. So accountants, HR, IT, these are all types of positions that tend to fall into this category. And basically what they found is that 77% of HR executives reported experiencing financial stress. They also, interestingly, found that only 5% of HR leaders answered financial literacy questions correctly in the survey, compared to 18% of all respondents. So not a good showing for us HR professionals when it came to their questions about financial literacy. Now, why would that be the case? Well, for many HR people, financials are not necessarily their strong suit, just being honest. This is my experience. A lot of people who are in HR are in there for reasons of wanting to have an impact on people. That is not every HR person. For instance, my background is actually more sales than other stuff. And so I came into HR with a fairly strong financial background comparatively. But as a consequence of this, not all of these individuals are as astute financially with what needs to happen and how to take care of their financial matters. This can show up in a negative light in the company. Realistically, what this is showing us is there's a disconnect between the information that companies sometimes are giving out and what the HR employee is actually applying to their own life. So I don't know if this study goes into great detail about what it is that is causing this issue, this disconnect. This could be poor decision making, could be catastrophic situations such as unexpected medical bills. I don't know if the study went into those details or just did kind of an overview of how do you feel you are. So skipping down a little bit, it says HR professionals are often responsible for communicating financial wellness benefits to their teams, but sometimes forget the content is also for them, she said, which is referring to Deanna Allison, who's the Director of Benefits, Wellbeing, and Financial Programs at a financial services company called Bread Financial. They're more focused on making sure employees know about the benefits. And yes, absolutely 100%. I've done this myself. I've seen this any number of times. It's easy to be reading off of a script, sometimes that you prepared, and not connecting the dots that, wait, this applies to me. And therein lies the problem. You know, if you're not reading into that script what is going on for you yourself, it can be easy to not take care of your own business in the way that you need to. So the article goes on and talks about increased workloads, which is definitely true. Most of the HR people that I know have seen their workloads increase. Sometimes this is because companies have had to downsize for one reason or another, and oftentimes HR is considered a cost center by most companies, and therefore they want to minimize how much they spend there. What this tends to mean is that while they might say they've let go 5 HR people because of business downturns 2 years ago, 3 years ago, whatever, related to COVID or something else with the economy, oftentimes they've only rehired 1 or 2 of those. So even though they may have brought back more than that percentage of the rest of the workforce, oftentimes the HR people are facing more duties that would have been spread beyond amongst the rest of them, instead of just the sheer volume right now. The other big factor is right now recruiting is a horrendous task within the HR world. So any HR department that also has responsibility for recruiting is definitely seeing an increased workload. The number of people who are not responding or are responding to a certain extent through the hiring process and then disappearing in one way or another is drastically more than I've ever seen before. And it's a very frustrating element. In my particular situation, I have a coworker who does most of our recruiting, and he constantly feels like he is spinning his wheels because he can feel like he's nailed somebody down for a position and have them not show up their first day, or they show up their first couple of days and then they disappear. And even after a couple of days, sometimes they disappear within a week or 2. So a lot of craziness on that front, and that's definitely a big stressor. Your issue there is that while the HR person themselves has to deal with the recruiting headaches, they also have to deal with the manager who is frustrated because they need help and they've asked HR to help, and they don't feel like HR is helping because the person's not showing up. And it's one of those things. In one sense, the manager's right. In another sense, the manager is not. I mean, the HR person is doing their job. They're not connecting with the employee for whatever reason. What are some solutions that are mentioned in this article? They mentioned that financial wellness benefits can be a solution, adding benefits to support workers in retirement. Not really sure how that relates to the employees who are actually working right now, but that theoretically can reduce some of the workload on HR right now because of having the retirees dealing with those new benefits? Maybe. Then we have access to financial advisors, and they make an interesting comment in the midst of this. So this is, I believe this is the same, this is the same Deanna Ellison makes a comment. In some cases, HR professionals may be embarrassed if they don't understand the financial wellness tools their employer offers and could therefore be afraid to ask for help. They tend to serve first and think of themselves last, she said. You tend to hear that guilt. I should be better than this. So here is definitely the other piece of this pie, part of this equation, and that is that HR people can feel like they're supposed to have these answers. So when they have done something that puts them in a bad position, they can feel like it is a personal, not attack. Oh, what is the word I'm looking for there? They can be very conscious of the fact that this is going to reflect poorly on them because they made this decision, they took this action that everybody knows you shouldn't take. The other factor sometimes is they're the ones who are supposed to have the answers, so sometimes they just don't know who to turn to ask the questions. So in great situations, they have other managers or other coworkers who they trust, who they can go ask these sort of questions to. But in some cases, it just comes down to, well, I'm the one who's supposed to have this answer and I don't know, so where to go? And again, there comes this shame element, and that's the piece that is getting pointed out here. And I think that's a very astute observation by Miss Allison. And I very much agree with this statement. Ultimately, education is the most important tool employers have. And this was said by Scruggs. Have we met Scruggs before? One second here. Let me look back. That name does not sound familiar. Barrett Scruggs, Vice President of Workplace Financial Wellbeing at SoFi at Work. Okay, so that was in a section that I didn't go into great detail on because it had to do with the increased workloads. So Mr. Scruggs says, ultimately, education is the most important tool employers have. HR executives should focus on educating their own teams as well as the broader company on how to be financially smart. Yes, as with so many things, and financial definitely, the key is education. We have to increase our knowledge. When we increase the knowledge, that allows us to increase our ability to use that knowledge, and using that knowledge is what ultimately leads to better performance in our own financial situation. So yes, great article, great reminder for those who may not have thought about it, that their HR people are not supermen or superwomen. They have their own problems that they're dealing with. Sometimes they're dealing with them well, sometimes they're not. If you are an employee and not working in HR, what does this mean for you? I think the main thing for you is keep in mind when you walk in some days and you're wanting to take out something on the HR person, they have their own things that they're dealing with. And, ask the questions. Yes, that's part of why HR exists. But sometimes being polite, sometimes being kind can go a long way because they're dealing with it too. Maybe your HR person is trying to figure out how to make a car payment so that they don't get their car repossessed. And you being upset because your prescription paid $25 instead of $35, or whatever the headache that you're having, it can be hard for them to transition to thinking about your need when they're dealing with their own financial situation. So again, that doesn't excuse them from not doing what they need to do. But it is something to keep in mind, is they may have their own things going on that are impacting their ability to focus on you the way they should. Managers, similar. Keep in mind that your HR people may be dealing with their own things, and you know, that may affect how quickly they respond or how they respond. And hopefully it's not a massive thing, but it can be a thing. So if you are within the HR field and you need help, remember to go through your own benefits. Okay, take a few minutes and look through your benefits packet. Look to see if there are details in there that will benefit you yourself, because sometimes we've been more brilliant than we give ourselves credit, and there are actually things in our existing benefits already that will answer the questions and solve the problems that have come up, have been brought up, you know, whatever the situation is there. And beyond that, you know, I think this is just a great reminder that, you know, the business world is tough all the way around. There is no mystic position that prevents you from having to deal with issues, not even in the HR world. So if you found this interesting, please consider hitting the like and subscribe below. Please leave a comment if you have questions or anything in this that you want to discuss more. And particularly if this is a type of content that you value, please let us know. This is Dominic. I'm out of here.